The rancher had always believed a man should die the way he lived, quietly, without complaint and owing nothing to anyone. But as the last winter of his life crept across the plains, like a slow white shroud, even Ezekiel Crow knew that belief was starting to crack. His ranch, once alive with the thunder of hooves and the laughter of hired hands, lay mostly silent now, fences leaning like tired old men and the barn doors groaning whenever the wind pushed through them. Ezekiel lay in his narrow bed near the window, lungs burning with every breath, his body thin as if the land itself had been slowly reclaiming him. The doctor from the nearest town had come 3 days earlier, smelling of antiseptic and pity, and had left behind a single small vial of medicine, expensive, rare and powerful enough, he said, to buy Ezekiel a few more weeks, maybe a month if God was feeling generous. Ezekiel had nodded, thanked him, and watched the doctor ride away, knowing in his bones that time was no longer something he could bargain for. That same evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, a knock came at the door, soft, hesitant, almost lost beneath the moan of the wind. No one knocked on a dying man's door anymore. When Ezekiel dragged himself up and opened it, he found a native girl standing barefoot in the snow. No more than 16, her dark hair braided and stiff with ice, her eyes glassy with fever. She collapsed before she could speak. Ezekiel carried her inside with arms that shook from more than weakness, laid her near the fire and listened as her breathing rattled worse than his own. He recognized the signs: pneumonia, the kind that killed fast out here. In her small pouch he found herbs, carefully wrapped, and a carved bone charm worn smooth by fingers that believed in it. She murmured in a language he did not understand, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes. And in that moment, Ezekiel remembered another winter, decades ago, when his own daughter had burned with fever, and there had been no medicine, no miracle, only prayer that went unanswered. He sat beside the girl long into the night, torn apart by a decision he never thought he'd face. The vial sat on the table, catching the firelight, holding inside it his last chance to delay the inevitable. He knew if he gave it to her, he would almost certainly die sooner. He also knew that if he didn't, she would not see another sunrise. Somewhere beyond the walls of the ranch, a coyote howled, and Ezekiel felt as if the land itself was listening. With a shaking hand, he opened the vial, mixed the medicine with water, and helped the girl drink. She coughed, then swallowed, then slept. Ezekiel lay back down, chest screaming, yet his heart strangely calm, as if a weight he'd carried for years had finally been set down. Before dawn, the fever broke. The girl woke, eyes clear now, and looked at him with something like awe. She spoke his name, though he was certain he had never told her, and said only one word in broken English: grandfather. When the morning light spilled across the room, Ezekiel drifted in and out of consciousness, certain he would not last another day. But as the sun rose fully, the door opened again, and the smell of sage and smoke filled the air. Footsteps slow, deliberate. Ezekiel forced his eyes open and saw an old man standing at the foot of his bed, wrapped in worn robes, eyes sharp as flint, carrying a staff etched with symbols older than the ranch, older than the town, older than Ezekiel himself. The native girl stood beside him, alive, steady, no trace of sickness left in her face. The old man spoke, his voice deep and calm, and though Ezekiel did not understand the words, he felt them settle into his chest like a promise. The shaman had come, and nothing in Ezekiel Crow's life or death would be the same again. If this story has pulled you in so far, remember to subscribe to the channel, because what happens next will challenge everything you think you know about. Sacrifice, destiny, and miracles yet to come. Ezekiel Crow had spent his life believing that miracles were stories told to make the weak sleep easier at night. Yet as the shaman stepped closer to his bed, staff tapping softly against the wooden floor, Ezekiel felt something stir inside him that medicine had never touched. The air itself seemed heavier, warmer, filled with the scent of sage and earth after rain, and for the first time in weeks his chest loosened, just enough for a full breath to slip in without pain. The old man did not rush. He studied Ezekiel the way a rancher studies the sky before a storm, not with fear but with understanding. The native girl, now strong, her posture proud, knelt beside the bed and spoke quietly, translating the shaman's words into halting English. He said the land remembered Ezekiel. It remembered the fences he never built across the river, the winters when he left grain for animals not his own, the night long ago when he guided a lost native family through a blizzard instead of turning them away. Ezekiel's eyes filled with tears at memories he had buried under years of silence. The shaman said that when Ezekiel gave away his last medicine, he did not choose death, he chose balance. And balance, the old man said, was more powerful than time. He began a ritual, chanting softly, drawing symbols in the air with smoke, pressing a warm hand against Ezekiel's chest. Pain surged, sharp and terrifying, then ebbed like a retreating tide. Ezekiel screamed once, then went still. When he woke hours later, sunlight flooded the room, and he realized something impossible. He was breathing freely. Days passed. Word spread. Neighbors who had written him off as a dead man came riding in disbelief. Ezekiel grew stronger, slowly but steadily, as if life itself had decided to give him back what he had surrendered. The shaman returned once more before leaving, telling Ezekiel that his borrowed time was not a gift to waste, but a responsibility to live differently. And Ezekiel did. He opened his land as a place of refuge, shared what he had, and became known not as the dying rancher who survived, but as the man who chose compassion over fear. Years later, when Ezekiel finally did pass, it was peacefully, with the sound of wind in the grass and no regret left in his heart. His story outlived him, whispered across campfires and kitchen tables, reminding anyone who heard it that the smallest act of kindness can rewrite fate itself. If this ending moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of sacrifice, miracles, and the hidden strength of the human soul, because the next story may change the way you see the world forever.